Hello everyone, and welcome to my escape. I'm cold, so welcome to my big fluffy hoodie. If you're new here, my name's Katie, and on this channel we talk about books. Specifically today, we're going to talk about my top 10% of the books I read in 2023. So in 2023, I read 116 books, so that puts 10% at about 11, 12 books. So we're gonna have 12 books on this list because I couldn't narrow it down. We got YA fantasy, high fantasy, romance, general fiction, and science fiction. So let's get into it. So the first one I'm going to throw up, you're probably honestly sick of me talking about it, but it is Renegades. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I can't stop talking about it because it is that good. I read the first two in the series in the summer, and then I actually finished the second one like right at the beginning of 2024 because it is just a phenomenal trilogy. So it's YA, fantasy, science fiction. I have a hard line when you get to YA between science fiction and fantasy. I just don't know where the line is. So I kind of just call them both. But basically, you have a world that is ran by superheroes after an age that was ran by supervillains. The heroes came in, weeded the villains out, and the heroes took over. And everyone's just kind of happy because, you know, the world's ran by superheroes. What could be wrong? But we follow a girl who's like the daughter of the villains, essentially. And she's going undercover to infiltrate the superheroes' headquarters to kind of bring them down from the inside. She gets placed on a team with the son of the main superheroes. So watching the two of them interact and watching like the points of view interact without the antagonism of being like physically at war, just watching them kind of discuss things and start to challenge what they've already been told on both sides. So on one hand, you have the social commentary going on and it's making you think. I thought a lot in this series. And then on the other hand, you're watching these characters grow and kind of come into their own thoughts and their own opinions and to challenge everything that they've kind of learned and what they know. While also like bridging the gap between like what is a superhero, what is a supervillain, what actually separates us, and is it anything substantial or is it just a social construct? I love this series. I cannot say that enough. I love this series. Characters are so fun. The world is so fun. It's easy to read. It's like reading like almost like a tier 1 Marvel movie that then builds. There's epic battle scenes. There's like creepy funhouse mirrors, watching everyone's powers and seeing how they interact. It is such a fun read that also makes you think at the same time. I loved it and I am obsessed with this series. The next one for this list is Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is YA fantasy romance. So we open on our main girl and she is just heartbroken, like just heartbroken. So she goes and looks for, like, he's like the Prince of Broken Hearts or something like that. He's basically a god. They call him a fate, but he's basically, think like god-esque, like in like multiple deity mythology. And she goes and she finds this chapel and she prays to him and he gives her like a really like twisted solution that she then goes back on and says, no, like I can't go through with this, like this is wrong. But that has landed her in the predicament where on the one hand, she now owes this god favors for what she got from them. And on the other hand, society views her as a hero because she saved people, not knowing that she was the cause of the problem. So now she is invited to like the magic kingdom, because she's in the regular kingdom. She's invited to the magic kingdom as like a guest of the crown. And she goes, all right, why not? Let's go. So now you get transported into this magical kingdom and she's living her life, but you know that she owes that god a couple favors. There's other things in play, and it is just a terrible synopsis I just gave you, but I don't know how to entice you without giving things away, so that is the best I can do. But this book has brought me into a magic world like a book hasn't done since I was a child. Like, this gave such fairy tale vibes. It's crazy. Like, imagine the feeling when you were like really, really little and you read a fairy tale or you had a fairy tale read to you and you were absolutely immersed in that world and you thought that world was like real. That was how this book was written, and I loved it. I loved that feeling of being absolutely immersed in the world again, and immersed in such like a magical, distinctive world where, yeah, there's like some calls to other fairy tales, but it's not a fairy tale retelling. It's completely its own story. So good, so good. Oh, loved it. I will say though, this is connected to the Carval series, and some people say you should read the Carval series before going into this series because it has some character crossover. I read the first Carval book and I hated it. Hated it, hated it, hated it. So I say just go straight into this one because it was so good. So good. I don't know if I said this before, but these books are not in any particular order. This is not like 1 to 12 or 12 to 1. This is just like the top 12. So then we have The House of Salt and Sorrows. This is a fantasy thriller or a fantasy suspense, something like that, but it's also a fairy tale retelling. Yes, I love my fairy tale retellings. But this is 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. This was probably the creepiest book I read in 2023. With that said, I don't read creepy books, so take that with a grain of salt. But this one was so interesting. So the 12 Dancing Princesses story itself is essentially there's 12 princesses and their mom dies, and the king is in such mourning that he doesn't let the family out of like official mourning. In their culture, when you lose somebody for a year, you wear black and you can't go to balls and you can't go out into society because it's and you like shut all the light out of the house and you close all the drapes, and it's very like sad. And he can't get over the loss of his wife, so he just doesn't end the mourning. And the girls, like, they've had enough. They want to celebrate their mom. Their mom loved light and community and society and all this, and they just don't feel like being trapped in this castle is a good representation of her. So they, you know, try workarounds, and then they find a way, it's a magical way, to dance, to have balls in the castle without the king knowing, except that magic always comes at a cost. So that's the fairy tale of the 12 Dancing Princesses. So this one opens and 3 of the princesses are already dead. Or 4 of them. I don't even know, but they're already dead. We open on the funeral of like the 3rd or the 4th sister. And our main girl, she goes, oh, I keep losing my sisters, like what's going on? And then she starts going, this is a little suspicious that we've lost so many so quickly. So she starts like kind of diving into things and trying to see if she can uncover what is happening to her sisters. But at the same time, they're figuring out how they can dance, and she's kind of falling into that. And then there's also some mysterious people going on that are new. But then it gets like deeper into deeper into like what is happening. And then you don't know what is happening. Like you actually just, the character's like, is there monsters? Are there gods? Is there magic? Or am I losing my mind because I can't tell? And it is such a good, like, spooky, like, read this in spooky season. Or if you just like to be spooky all the time, you do you. I don't like that feeling. But, like, it pulled me in. I listened to the audio for this one, and I think that's what did it for me. But it pulled me in, and I was so inside my own head about this one. And I was like, this is so creepy. Like, this is so creepy. Like, if it was me, couldn't be me. Literally couldn't be me. I'd be done. I'd be like, just take me now. Let me be the 5th sister, because I'm not solving it. But so good. And then the next 3 books, I have talked about so much, but I've talked about them so much because they're just that good. So we have Shadow of the Fox, another YA fantasy, and this is Japanese mythology. So we have one character who's a kitsune, which is like half fox, half human, and we have another character that's like, they call him the Demon Slayer. So he's human, but he was raised by assassins essentially, and he has this sword that can kill demons, but it also comes at a price, and he's constantly fighting that price. And they're both after the same like magical objects. So they go, okay, let's join forces, let's go find it together, and then, you know, we'll figure out what we do from there. So then they're traipsing across the country, and there's all these little side quests where they have to hunt like ghosts and monsters and these like random people, and then these random people join their entourage, and we love that, okay? It's a book of side quests, and it was so fun. It was so fun. I love all the characters that were added. I can't wait to see where the story goes, and the plot itself, like the overarching plot or the connecting plot, is also really good, and I'm really interested in that. And that is a hard balance to strike between both the side quests and the main plot being interesting. But I truly had such a blast with this one. I love Japanese mythology, so getting to read a book about a kitsune was so much fun. And it's by an author I really like, so another series of her that I just love. But yes, absolutely love this book. Highly recommend. Go pick it up, and I cannot wait to finish the series this year. Very similarly, This Woven Kingdom, another one I crushed at the end of 2023, like Shadow of the Fox. And I always talk about them together because I read them like a week apart, but so good. So this one is Middle Eastern vibes. You've got humans and you've got jinn, and the humans hate the jinn because the jinn have magic. So then they go, okay, don't use your magic and we won't kill you. If you use your magic, we'll kill you. So the our main girl is a djinn, and she doesn't really like the oppression that the djinn are facing, but she's alone, and she just kind of has to make ends meet. And then the crown prince of like the humans like spots her and goes, "You are suspicious, like something is off about you." So then now she has the attention of the crown, and not in a good way, like in a very, very bad, scary way. And she's like, "I'm just trying to be out here living." But uncovering really everyone that's at play and their backstories and how they came to be and what that means was so interesting and so fun. And then the ending, I can't tell you about the ending because it literally, like, there's no way I can like sum up the ending without spoiling everything in the book, so you just have to read it. But the ending was so good. It was a cliffhanger. I cannot wait to get in the rest of the series. But the ending was so, it was not where I thought it was gonna go, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. I should have prefaced this one though. This one is like fantasy romance, so whether that's your thing or not, I'll just clarify that. And then another one that's like YA fantasy romance is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. Again, I know I talked about it a lot, but I just love it that much. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but you take a person from our world and then you drop her into this magic world with this evil monster that's like killing the townspeople because the prince has been cursed, and to break the curse he needs somebody to fall in love with her, but she wasn't the person that was supposed to come through the portal. So they're both like, "Well, we're effed because I could literally never love you, so what are we gonna do about this?" So then it gets into like really politicking, like how do we solve this problem with knowing we can't solve this with love. We can't just fall in love with each other and have it solved. So how do we like protect the people from there? And she goes along with it, not because she's like absolutely gold-hearted, she just can't leave. So she's like, "Well, if the monster eats all the townspeople, then the monster's gonna come eat me. So we gotta figure it out now." She's a little more, you know, nice and compassionate than I just sounded there, but so good. And I just, this book hits a point where it starts politicking with like other kingdoms and starts going into like the relationships there, and then it pulls her in a way that I just love, and I love seeing it all come together. And I just love her, our main character. It got great disability rep, and she is just so ferocious and just, oh, I love Harper. Like, I love Harper. I love this story. I love this book. I read it in January, and I thought about it probably every month for the rest of the year. But I really wanted to read the physical versions of this book, and until Christmas, when my sister got me this one, I only own the first one. So every month I'd be like, I should go to the library and pick up the physical book because I really want to get into it again. But so good. Now I've read the second one. So good, but that's in 2024. And I can't wait to finish the series. So I have one book that would be considered like a high fantasy that made the list of the top 10%, and that is In the Name of the Wind. I really did enjoy this book eventually. It's not a 5-star for me because it took a long time to get into, but once I was into it, I was absolutely immersed, and you're here for the vibes. Like, I will, like there is a plot, absolutely, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of characters, it's very interesting, but for me, I was here for the vibes. I don't know if that's everyone else's experience, but I had a couple friends who were like, "Please, please, please, for the love of God, just read it." And I said, "Fine," even though it's like a little ugly little edition. I said, "Fine, I'll read it." The beginning is boring, but you have to trust me like I trusted them. And then once you get into it, you'll love it. Essentially, this is dual timeline. So it opens and this like creepy spider demon thing gets thrown on the table of a bar. The bartenders are like, "Crap, what are they doing here?" Well, the rest of the townspeople are like, "Oh my God, what is this demon?" So you already know the bartender's different. And the story kind of oscillates between this time when he's like going by a new name and he's in this like very, very like remote rural community as a bartender, and you're like, "What are you doing here?" And it's very clear that like he's entered retirement, but you don't know why. And then he has an apprentice who he's like telling the story to. Like, most of the book is that story, so it's like back in time, but you get a couple chapters that like link it to the current present. But in that story, it's like how he came to be. So it starts on like his parents and his upbringing, and then, you know, where he went from there. And I can't really go into anything else because it spoils, you know, how he went. But once you hit a certain part, you're like, I'm really curious. And then you hit another part and you're like, I'm bored. And then after that part, immersed for the rest of the time. I had so much fun with this one. That was a terrible breakdown. So it is called The Kingkiller Chronicles. The first 2 are out. I plan to read the second one this semester. These do give very like heavy academia vibes. Well, not heavy, but like those are like the vibes that I was like immersing myself in. Like, this book actually made me want to go to the library and want to do my homework. I read 120 books in 2022. I read 116 books in 2023. This is the only one that has ever made me be like, you know what? Maybe school could be fun. So if you're in school, highly, highly recommend. If you're not in school, highly, highly recommend. Just know that you do have to get through the beginning, but it's absolutely worth it, and I'm here for the vibes all day. And then I have one science fiction on this list as well. That is, of course, Ender's Game. I didn't read a lot of science fiction this year, and honestly, I read Ender's Game. That was a reread for me. So it wasn't a new book, but it's still one of my top reads of the year. I will never stop talking about this book. It is so, so good. Whether you read sci-fi or not, read this book. You will absolutely love it. Don't watch the movie because it's very, very bad, but it's so good. Essentially, you're way in the future. Earth has been invaded twice or has been part of like 2 major like wars with this alien species, and they're prepping for like the 3rd war. So you follow these 3 kids. Your main one is Ender, and he gets recruited into the military, and he's raised in like military space school from the age of 6 onwards to make him like the best general. So he's trapped at this boarding school that's all about military strategy and who's the strongest. And then at the same time, you follow his 2 siblings on Earth as they kind of come into their own, because they're all geniuses. Come into their own and start like manipulating people on Earth and the politics going on and the situation on Earth. So the flip back and the contrast is really, really interesting, because you got the war in the military on the one side, you get the politicking on the other, and they're all kids that are doing it. So it's phenomenal. It's so interesting. It's such a cool premise, and the ending will blow you away. That's all I can say there. It is just so good. It's so good. There's nothing else I can say about it. Ender's Game is just a phenomenal story. And I recommend to all ages, all readers, literally anything. You don't have to be a sci-fi buff. You don't just hop into this and you will have a blast. And then into romance. So I had 3 romance books that made the top 12 of the year. One of them, and I'm cheating a little bit on this one because it's a series, but is Losers. So there's Losers Part 1, Losers Part 2, and a prequel called The Dare. All of them, I just say they're all one entity. And here you go for joy. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is reverse harem, so one girl, 4 guys, and she was kind of like the queen bee in high school, and they were like the losers and the rejects. And this begins after she's out of college. She comes back home, they're still living there, and she falls in with her old friends who bully these guys, and something happens, and then she's like, I'm on the hook for this. Like, there are consequences now. And the losers go, we'll forgive this indiscretion, which means we won't go to the cops, and we'll also like help you with this other thing you need, but in return, you're ours for as long as it takes to fix. And she goes, well, I can't have a criminal record, and I really need this other thing done, and also I've kind of always been into them, and this is the perfect excuse. So agreed. And that is the premise for it. But this is so cute. Like, the 5 of them, watching them, like, just interact. Like, the main girl, I think her name is Jess, she comes so far, and, like, just watching her process things and come to terms with things and, you know, really, like, explore and express herself, it's just very wholesome to watch. Well, not wholesome. This is a very, very spicy book. Not wholesome. That was the wrong word. Very lovely to watch, we'll say. And then also the guys, Manson, and I think that guy's name is Liam or something like that. They're so cute. Manson is the love of my life. Like, his communication is so good. He's so patient. He's so caring. He has a sad backstory, but he's not letting that define him and control him. He's acknowledging, you know, these things run in the bloodline, and these things are very like prominent in my situation and in my family, so I'm gonna purposely like actively look for ways to not fall into the same traps as those before me did, to have a better life. I want to like show the people around me that I love them and that I care for them and that I'm here for them, and I don't care what society says, and I don't care what anybody else says. Like, the people in my life are gonna know that like I value them and I care for them, and I don't give a fuck what the world has to say, because, you know, I'm here for them. He's so cute. I love him so much. Like, I don't even think you guys understand how much I love this guy. I don't think I can express it. I've never really understood the concept of a book boyfriend until him, because I'm like, you're literally my whole world. Like, he's not perfect, and that's what makes him perfect, and I love him. I love him. The other guys are great too, and for a reverse harem, this one really does establish the relationship between each pair and then the group as a whole really, really well, rather than just the group or just like a single pair. So you get the depth and the dynamics between them all, and that's really fun. But just like watching them all grow and figure things out and like support each other, my whole heart, like they're literally my whole heart. Okay, I have to move on because I can't think about Manson anymore because my heart will burst. You know in the Grinch movie when he's got like a heart that's like 2 times too small or whatever, and then after everything, spoiler for the Grinch, I guess, but after everything his heart like boom boom until it's like 2 times as large or something? That's how my heart feels when I think about Manson Reed. Such a cutie. Such a cutie. Okay, moving on. The next romance on the list is definitely Book Lovers. I ended up reading this twice in 2023. This is like the reverse of a Hallmark movie, and I love that because you know what? I like my Hallmark movies. Don't get me wrong. I like my Hallmark movies, but they are like very tropey, and it is very much the same. Like, guy from the city goes to a small town to like shut down this business, and the business runner, you know, is this magical perfect woman, and he goes, oh, I actually love you, and I'm gonna stay in town, and we're gonna get married, and I'm gonna fix this business, and we're gonna run it together and live happily ever after. And then there's always the like very cold-hearted girlfriend that the city guy left in the city, and he's just like, you don't understand, this is true love, we've been living life wrong, nothing we love really matters, my priorities have changed now. And she's just like, oh, I hate you, I'm such a cold-hearted poopy-whoopy, ah. And then she's gone out of the picture. This book follows that girl, that terrible city girl that you're like, I'm not that mad that he kind of cheated on you, because you know what, you suck. She is that girl, and she is so aware that she is that girl, but as you go through the book, you realize she's really not. She's just, why is it so terrible to want to be a city person? Why is it so terrible to love your life in the city? Why is it so terrible to love your career? Like, not everybody has to want the same things. But she's a book agent, so she's well aware of, like, the tropes in her life, and the trope that she, like, fulfills, she hates it. And then her little sister, who our main girl would give the world for, goes, hey, I really need some, like, time away right now. We're gonna go on this vacation to this really tiny town. And the girl's like, I hate this because I love my career and I live in New York City and, you know, this is all great, but I would do anything for you, sister, so okay, let's take this vacation. Now our true-hearted, down-to-her core city girl is in this small town, and her little sister wants to do all these, like, Hallmark-esque things, like wear plaid, go on a date with a lumberjack kind of thing, and they have this whole list, and our main girl is like, this is my version of hell. So now you get to see the small town, not from the perspective of like Hallmark movies that always make them seem so like grand and perfect and cute and like an escape from your current world. No, she talks about like the mosquitoes and the dirt and how her heels are getting wrecked because they keep sinking into the grass, and she likes her shoes. Let the woman like her shoes, okay? None of this has even been romance so far. This is just how much I love the main character. But anyways, in this small town, she runs into like her career rival, I guess. He also lives in New York, and he's a book editor, so they kind of run in the same circles, but they really don't like each other because they had a bad meeting like a couple of years ago, so they're not friends at all. But they're the only 2 people in the city that really understand each other because they're both entirely city people, and they don't want to be in this small town. And they end up working on a book together as a book agent and a book editor, so they're like, okay, so they're like just basically put in each other's path, and then they fall in love. Because it's a romance, so you know it's going there. But it was so freaking cute. And these characters are so perfect for each other. Like, a lot of the romances I read, like, I like the couples and I like the relationships. But I can't actually look at you and be like, oh, they're the only one that I could see this person with. Like, most of them aren't. Most of them you're like, okay, well, like, I could see them ending up with somebody else. Not necessarily in this story, but, like, anybody else. But these 2 characters are so perfect for each other, I actually can't imagine them with anybody else. Like, it's either they're together or they're alone. There is no alternative. They're the epitome of soulmates. I love them. I love the growth that's seen in this. I love the humanity of it. I love, like, the weaknesses and the barriers that are shown. I love the characters. I love the story. It's not only, like, fun and light and fluffy, but it also, like, you feel for Nora, our main girl. You feel for her and what she's going through, and you just want her to be okay. And I love the interaction between these two, and I love them, and they're perfect. And yes, just yes. Last romance on the list is Heated Rivalry. This is an hockey romance, and I'm shocked that a hockey romance made my top 10%. I don't read hockey romances. I don't. But this one, for some reason, I did, and I loved it. Okay, I loved it. This book had me giggling, it had me screaming, it had me going, ah! It had me making all of the noises, okay, all of the noises. And I was smiling so hard that by the end of the book, my jaw ached. My jaw ached, and I couldn't wipe the stupid smile off my face because I was so obsessed with these two, and they were so freaking cute that I was like, no. I'm sorry, I'll just have to break my jaw at this point because, like, I was smiling that hard and for that long. Essentially, it opens and you're at the World Juniors. If you're not familiar with hockey, the World Juniors is an international competition that happens every year around Christmas, and I think it's between like 16 and 20-year-olds who compete, or like 17 and 21, something like that. And every country puts like their top players together and they play one tournament over the Christmas break. So it opens and, you know, one guy's from Russia and the one guy is from Canada, I think, or the US. And they're playing and they're heading off against each other. And right from the get-go, the world is like, these are the two best up-and-coming players of the world. They're facing off in this tournament. Like, we're pitting them against each other. And in every news article, every interview, every meeting, we're pitting these two against each other. So that's the kind of the experience. And then, you know, then it's the NHL draft. So there are a lot of time jumps in this, but then it's the NHL draft and, you know, who's going to go first. And the media is just constantly pitting these two against each other. Enemies, enemies, they have to be enemies, they have to be enemies. But in the background, there's some vibes, you know, and they're kind of trying to learn about themselves and explore some things, and they're really, really attracted to each other. But obviously they can't come out because the NHL is super homophobic. I just say most, you know, professional sports are super homophobic, to be honest. They're worried about their careers and what that's going to do and if they can still play hockey because their whole life is playing hockey. So they can't just, like, be together. So it's them being together without being together while also being, like, complete enemies set up by the media. My heart, you just want them to be happy. You just want them to be happy, but you can see why they can't be. Like, it's a true obstacle and a true challenge that most books lack. Like, most books, I'm like, you could really get over this. Like, you could just, this is an easy solution. Like the stakes aren't there. The stakes were there in this book, and I love that because they weren't, like, so ridiculous that you're like, why would you even try? But they weren't, like, so non-existent that you're like, what is even stopping you at this point? Like, it was just the perfect balance. They were so cute, and the ending was so beautiful and realistic. Well, not even beautiful, like bittersweet and realistic, because it's not necessarily what you want, but it's better than you think, I guess, or it's better than I thought, and it just left you wanting more. But, like, they're so cute. They're so cute, and I just want the world for them. I want the world for them, and it was a great read, and I had such fun with it, and I would recommend. Last book on the entire list is a general fiction book, and it is Lessons in Chemistry. This book is in, like, the 1950s or 60s, and it follows a woman. So she has a cooking show, she has a 5-year-old daughter, and then the book flips back and goes, like, how did she get to where she is? Because she's a trained chemist, and so, like, how did she end up on this cooking show on, like, the news channel or something like that? And it is really just a great exploration of the obstacles women faced at the time, and not just one obstacle. Like, this book does something really weird where it flips POVs, like, randomly, but it actually makes so much sense, and it doesn't mess with your flow, and you actually enjoy it because you get not only, like, the perspective of our main woman, but, like, people she might have 1 or 2 conversations with that you just get their point of view for, you know, half a page or something like that, and you might not even see them again after that. but you get like slightly different perspectives and like how they all fit together and what it really meant to be a woman at this time and the barriers and the obstacles you have to face on an everyday like level. Like a lot of them, they're like you can't overcome them. Like there's no way in society you can like actually overcome them. So kind of seeing that and seeing the struggle, like it made you so frustrated and so angry because you're just like, what are like why? Like why can't you just give the main character like what she deserves, like what she has earned? Like she is a chemist. And just no, because she was a woman chemist. That was just, you know, not seen as equal. And it's still, I would argue, is not seen as equal. But like just the way this book was written was so original, I felt, with like the switching point of views and everything like that. And our main character you love and you're just rooting for her and she's great. And everything she goes through just burns your soul a little bit. But you're like, wow, like people actually really had to face these things. And this is very realistic and this sucks and is terrible and it hurts. And I hate having to read this because I want to be happy. But at the same time, you love reading it because you're so immersed in it. And you want her to like, I don't know, get what she deserves in the end. So you have to get to the end to see if she does. And it's just great. And I love it. And it's a book that really stuck with me. And it wasn't really the genre that I normally read at all. But wow, was it an incredible read. And this was actually the author's debut read. So you bet I will be keeping an eye open for her for pretty much anything she publishes in the future. Because wow, was it creative. Wow, was it original. And just wow. That's all I can say on that one. Wow. What is a book that really had you going, wow? Like, I don't even know what else to say on that other than wow, because I would love to experience something like that again. But most of what I look for is really like, I want to be happy. I would like to be happy. So I don't really have anything sitting on my TBR right now that I think is going to wow me. So leave me a rec down in the comments below. But that's all I have for you guys this video. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you had a blast. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I post videos every Friday, sometimes on Tuesdays when I'm feeling like it, so ring that bell for notifications and you won't miss anything. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!